which is surviving in academia today, returning to the future. And I think in which way ever we are always, but in particular now at a kind of turning point. Now, saying this, I'm never sure, even if I've prepared myself, but it's a kind of casual thing, more asking than presenting. I'm never sure how much it is really a personal thing, that I perceive this now we are turning in academia and whatsoever, or if it's really, and to which extent it is really a wider thing of academia, of societies. There's this beautiful poem of Kurt Tucholsky, one morning you smell the autumn. It isn't cold, it is not stormy. In general, nothing really changed, but you feel everything is different. And I think it's kind of expressing quite well, pretty well, where we are standing now, that there is this feeling wherever you go. People are talking, it's so different, everything changed. When I had been younger, and even young people say, when I studied, when I had been younger, everything was different. It was more open, it was allowing us to be more active or whatsoever. More active, but as well in a different way, freer than today. And I received actually yesterday or tonight a message from Chinese student, kind of complaining about this as well, of where are we going, what is actually our space for action. Writing something, maybe it's all about efficiency in the future, so I would rather wait for the technology to come and someone has questioned me. But I think it may not be what we want anymore, but it's more like an unstoppable trend. So I think it's kind of expressing well this fear we are. Max Weber talked about it, and this is why I'm wondering if it's just a perception we have now discussing about it, or if it's more, or if it's something that is there every time. Max Weber, Iron Cage, bureaucracy, we can say the same today. It's bureaucracy, it's business. There seems to be nothing else. Just another quote at the beginning, it's from Hannah Arendt. Strangely enough, in a German edition, I found it from her Vita Activa, Human Condition. In the English, it is not. No, I didn't check exactly the editions. Not cruelty is an attribute of tyranny, but the destruction of the public political realm, monopolized by the despot by claiming wisdom, or based on the thirst of power, i.e., insisting on citizens looking after the private concern, leaving it to him, the ruler, to take the public matters. Whoever it's the ruler in political terms, but it is as well something where I come here and see this tension as well, going in particular where we went the first night, when you collected me, Manufactura, which is the business place. It's just dominated by business, but it is as well shaping public space. You go there not only or not primarily to buy something, but to socialize. It's the old kind of replacement of the old marketplace, which had been a place for communication, not so much for business. They did some business, but the primary stuff was doing communicating. And this is where I'm coming to academia now, wondering, said this the other day, the old philosophy was talking about individuals, the meaning of being for individuals. And I think we should talk about something different instead of simply continuing this and say there is a kind of new philosophy, and I take philosophy in a very broad sense, that is concerned or should be concerned with being together. What does it mean to be together? And instead of complaining about, I feel so depressed, I feel so suppressed, oppressed, whatsoever, everything is about the market, which is true. I don't want to contest it at all, come to this. But to say, what do we want? What do we have to offer as well in academic work with our thinking to put something against this? This means to some extent, of course, to look after what is there, but really to look after this. I'm kind of hesitant to agree with this. Yeah, it's neoliberalism, we know this, they are so strong and they are doing this and that. Of course, it's not completely wrong. But at the same time, I think it is to some extent wrong that we put everything under this one term. Mm-hmm. And what I see in the economy, globally and locally, is a conflict not only between capital and non-capital, but it is as well within capital, within the ruling classes. If you look at, I use these phrases as well, ruling class, okay, who is the ruling class? There is as well in the academic world this tension of, on the one hand, you get depressed. You have to become depressed because everything is about ranking journals. You have to publish there. Whatever you write is useless. It doesn't mean anything. For whatever reason, I had been asked to go through my list of publications. I did this actually in the morning, yesterday evening and in the morning. And only, well, this was the reason they wanted only the German publications. And if I look, that's why I say it's a little bit a personal thing as well, or can be. If I look what I did, what I published, and where I would say, with all hesitation, humbleness, and whatsoever, where I had been influential, this was not about ranked publications. I published huge amount of small things in kind of meaningless journals, academically meaningless journals, but I would say at that time I had been kind of influential in terms of the debate on European social policy. Now, as I say, with all hesitation, and it was not changing Europe or building up Europe, but this was a debate where I participated actively as academic. The stuff I published during this time in terms of ranking or ranked papers was kind of meaningless. It was not really going to the points that had been part of this public. That's why I came or used this reference to Hannah Arendt. Tyranny is not having public space anymore. And I would say many of these publications that are important in terms of career are not really important, you may contest this, are not really important in terms of a public debate. If you look actually at the print run, it's frightening. Even if you look at the print run of Habermas or whatsoever, these big shots, it's frightening small numbers. And then some people say kindly, actually, whatever he published and where he has a relatively, or people like him have a relatively high print run, it's for the shelf, but it had never been read. and who reads, I don't know, these 1,500 pages of one volume of this work. I always felt sorry for the interpreters of Niklas Luhmann. So if even linguists, trained people in linguistic have difficulties, how should a normal person not have these difficulties? So this is my point, and if I then come to what we have to defend or what we have to look for is really this point of re-establishing a public. We are talking about democracy, and at the same time we have this kleptocracy or something. I don't know how common it is here, but you have the change.org, you have the remove, you have I don't know what, petition, just get it out there and say, yes, I agree. Funny things and surely not entirely useless, but I think what our task is, and this is why I'm always hesitating to say I'm sociologist, I'm economist, I'm whatsoever. I am. I have by training. I am this. I have been teaching kind of economics for dummies or something like this over a couple of years, which is really the textbook knowledge. But if I then see what is going on and then we are in political debates, or what I then see what students are really interested in, I see something different. And I got recently a message from a student in China saying, actually, I'm missing your open classes. And he was not talking about classes. I had to give lectures, if you talk about 60 students, with this tiny group. So I was inviting them. I said, I don't know, it was, I think, Thursday evenings. I'm sitting in the pub. There is nobody else. Well, there have been few people else, but you have a large space where you can meet with students. I said, just come. We talk about something that is of interest to you, where you are interested in, not even necessarily economic questions. I have been only teaching economics there, but what is your concern? And then you can link actually to something the textbook may artificially link to, but not in terms of their real concerns, or as well of our real concerns. Because this is, I think, we have to manage again what are our real concerns and how do we try to deal with them? How do we try to answer them? Concrete publications. This beautiful thing of internet links you. This article had been, because you're looking for whichever reason, you're looking for this. This had been quoted in. All right, could be interesting. I'll go for that. Blah, blah, blah. Difficult to publish in these journals. I think they have, somebody said, about 2 years. You hand it in. It's now published electronically first, and then it's print published. So it seems to be still important. But that apparently takes about 2 years. Even if the majority of submissions is rejected. So one answer I see is, if I don't get this published in this journal, I found my own journal. If you look at the number of journals out there, it's amazing. And they are so specialized that basically, and I know it from experience, that basically people are sitting together, we have difficulties, we don't really can use this journal, so let's make our own. And then, of course, because it's useless, it's meaningless, it's not ranked, you try to do what you reject. Instead of looking for different fora or utilizing the existing different fora, really to do what you want. I had been working previously at the Max Planck Institute in Munich. The Max Planck Society, which is the heading organization, it's different highly specialized institutes, and then it's the society. The society is one of the first societies that say, this is completely nonsense. Now, they don't say it in these words, but we limit ourselves. If we are telling our stuff or giving a message, publish only when you are ready, that you have the final results. What you are doing is you limit yourself. Because if you put something out there and say, no, this is just a vague idea, not really a vague idea, possibly even that. What do you think? And then come back to me. And then I say, okay, I can work a little bit with this. I put something else out. At the end of the day, I will have probably the best article. Because I get involved into discussion immediately. And there is this space for discussion, which is underutilized. And this is the idea of open access. There is so much, but at the same time, instead of really utilizing it, in many cases, again, we allow others to utilize it. And instead of, I think that's my thing, instead of complaining about, now they just grabbed this again. It had been so good. Why not keep it? Be strong in keeping it. So I think this is the same with teaching. To really convince students, which is impossible, I know, but at least to work into this direction, I had to write endless references. And then I talked with the students, even if it had been a large number, as long as I had been in China, or then via email. I said, if I write a reference, I want to write it. They said, well, the agency, they would do it for you. They give you a draft letter, you just have to sign. I said, no, I want to write it, and I want to talk to you, listening to you, and see where are your strengths. It's not about SWOT, this proper analysis, but to get a feeling. And they came up with interesting things. And then you can see, actually, and this was the difficulty, they are stuck in this trap, if you want. We have to go to a high-ranking university. And at the same time, we want to learn something. And I know people who have been going through this. They told me I had been at this top university, I won't name them. The only real benefit I have had was, in the one case, I had to speak English. It was not her mother tongue. People hadn't been available. In a small university, you can say people are keen, they want to develop something, they are keen to interact with the students, and they don't have 2,000 people in the lecture theatre. They have smaller groups. So why not utilize this and present it as advantage, instead of, no, we want to go up there as well. I could be bold and say, we want to be as bad as you. There had been lectures in my career, the most important names, so to say, whenever they had to go to a lecture or to a seminar, I know what they had been thinking. Is it really necessary? I want to sit there and write my book. This is important for me, not the students. So to utilize really what we have. And this is another trend now, actually even going hand in hand with the ranking, that whatever we develop in this area of highly recognized, acknowledged research is usually very general. It's grand theories, or it is something social inequality. It's the highly aggregated figures. I remember, this was actually great fun, when I had been starting teaching, I think it was my first course. So you prepare everything in detail. What should you say in the theory and the figures and blah, blah, blah. And then I made a cycle tour, just completely independent. First time going through areas of the city where I lived then, to go out. Then going through the countryside, I said, yeah, this is social structure. Mm-hmm. This is social inequality. This is how people live with social inequality, what they do with it. And this is where public is, coming back to this. This is where public it is. It's not, of course, sometimes people say I'm too theoretical in my orientation. You need all this, you have to have it, but what is relevant is the application in a place like Łódź, in a country like Poland. What is the development of public spaces, of counter-hegemonies? How does this really work? Not on the global level, but to really look at a kind of detailed picture, how people, and that's my main point probably, how people work with it. And I think this is something where we miss out. Instead of complaining, which is important nevertheless, but instead of complaining only about the grand narrative in terms of counter-narrative against us, limiting us, to think more about what are the tools that are there. How can we really work with students talking about this? Of course, it takes time if it's a language problem or if it's another problem. There is a funny thing with this. Well, it's not ranking, but the valuation of our work. I don't know exactly how it is here or if it is relevant, but in many departments you get, I say, 100 points per supervising of PhD students. You get 30 perhaps for an MA student, and then you get 5, let's say, for a BA student. Mm-hmm. If I have a large class and see there are few BA students, of course they don't know much at this stage, they cannot. But they are what's today called smart. They are interested, they will manage, they can think, they can ask questions. It takes a huge time, huge investment, huge work to say, okay, you are interested, if you want, we work something. In the extreme case of PhD student, I can say, you worked, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years on your academic career. Now you want to do a PhD thesis. You know, not everything, but quite a lot. Just sit down, come back 6 months and we'll talk about your draft. And then another 3 months and then. This is not really much work. Of course, the thinking is on a higher academic level. But in terms of work that I invest, there is more to the BA student, not acknowledged. So there I'm wondering, simply as I said in the beginning, putting things out there, if we don't lose out by not emphasizing the positive parts. what we are doing with BA students, how we can promote them, how we need, or what we need to promote them. We don't need slide presentations for them. They need really intensive discussions. The PhD student, you may have some slides and saying, well, you know the statistics, you know the definition, blah, 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 go there and look it up at home. So a little bit turning around, looking where is the public and what is really the public. It's not the high-ranking journals. Where is the public? My experience as well, there are huge potentials in departments to discuss. In many cases, they are not used. So to get this really recognized in a more pronounced way, which is then, of course, a political thing as well, talking to the ministries or whoever is responsible and say what we are doing is good because it is not following the standard rule. This is what we are beginning in academia, but I think we are too defensive there. And then in terms of topics, the last thing is actually about digitization. That's where I'm working on currently in particular. Digitization, I think there we blame too much what is going on. And of course, what is going on in the academic world, we have to do what the computer tells us, what the algorithm tells us. We are not looking really for ways of using these algorithmic or digitized systems, but we are allowing them to use us. If we really look at it, if you go to academia, Edu, or these large networks, what they are doing, in my experience, they are clearly showing that they don't have a clue. Mm-hmm. I just get actually kind of permanently news. You recently looked up this and that book. Now, this could be interesting as well. If I really look, sometimes I just look at it to see what are they doing. It's nonsense. They come up with nonsense. If they are looking, if some recommendation, we found a publication, is it you? Writing on the Silk Road or writing on chemistry or something, why should I be this? Of course, it can be something who is doing social science, you can work on chemistry. But to come up with these suggestions. Digitization is, of course, something as well hugely relevant, and this is the main trend in research there, of social insecurity, which doesn't exist if you are working for these so-called sharing economy things or whatsoever. But is this the way? This is the main argument brought forward, in the mainstream argument. We have to go back to old securities. I think we cannot, and we should not. We always complained about the old system, working my entire life for, I don't know, 6 days, 5 days, 40 hours per week. Is this the point here? To go back to what we complained about. We talked about always the old security systems do not work. Women fell out to a large extent. To come into this system was extremely difficult and is still not achieved. So what is the point? And there I'm thinking as well, we have to look for different answers, different systems, but as well we have to think about different methodologies. There are the four main methodologies, if you want, that are used in social science. It's methodological individualism, it's methodological nationalism. This is the focus. It's solutionism, sometimes called pragmatism. Just get a solution. We can think about the negative consequences later. And it is presentism. We need it now. Now is the answer. Now the rest doesn't interest us. To think about, to think differently about the challenge we face today, I think we have to look for a different methodology on this general level. Actually, today I came up with this, I called it before methodological collectivism or socialism. Why not talk about methodological Ubuntuism? It's this African principle of you are, I am because you are. Why not play with this? Then to think about noospherism. It's a different concept. It's coming actually from Russia. I was getting a little bit into this, working with a colleague from Moscow, to say we are part of this noosphere of it's going beyond the universe, and we have.
Please repeat the
noospherism. To go and say we are part. We in terms of our globe, we are part really of something else. There is this big history now coming up. I'm working as well with Moscow colleagues there. Why not think about really this global perspective as well in terms of time? What we are doing now, and we know this, had been evolving from something and is going somewhere where the future is relevant, not what is now. Of course, difficult if you say, coming back to the local, well, in 50 years, in 100 years, which will be blah, blah, blah. I need the solution now. Will be the answer. But I think there is a huge potential if we show the advantages that can come from there, from applying a wider approach. Very concrete is something to rethink economics, because what we do is not only about producing commodities. We all know this, but in economics we are still teaching the old rubbish, sorry. But we are talking, yes, we are producing commodities, the rest doesn't matter. We are producing personalities. We are producing relationships. And this can be named even in terms of cost. Why not really start there and make this point stronger than we do it? You find in wherever you go similar things, I think, or can find them. And this is, I think, as well something where we have to look for cooperation in terms of programs, in terms of topics, to find a way that is broader, that is actually not following this kind of this funny thing of discipline. We never think about it is a disciplining effect. It's disciplination of our thinking. And that's where I wanted to leave basically this, sometimes the entire academic world. Yes. So that's hopefully something to think about and to work on.